13-year-old Ebony Fingal is known as the sensitive one with a big heart.
Ebony was a very good kid and was very close to her family.
By all accounts, this was just a normal, typical, loving, average, middle-class family.
Kids who have the loving support of their parents turn out to be very successful. They're very well nurtured, very balanced and healthy, and turn out to be healthy adults also.
A straight-A student and popular among her peers, Ebony has high aspirations for the future.
She wanted to become a plastic surgeon someday, and she actually had the grades that was a trajectory that could have come to be.
At this point, there's nowhere for Ebony to go but up. Ebony was doing all the right things. She was making all the right moves in her life. She was destined for success.
But by her junior year, her future life goals are threatened when she begins to secretly spend time with the wrong crowd and experiment with marijuana.
So, you guys good come to class or what?
What we found is that kids who fall in with the wrong crowd, part of that is related to the upbringing that they've had with their families. You know, parents really want to do the right thing, and therefore they may instill some discipline and sometimes too much discipline, and then the kids rebel.
She keeps her new lifestyle on the down low and a new bad boy boyfriend to herself for the next year. But by the time she's 18, she receives news that will change the course of her life when she gets pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
The soon-to-be teen mom knows she can't hide a baby growing inside her, so she breaks the news to her parents.
Ebony's parents were not very happy. They're going, "You have a boyfriend? What do you mean? When did this happen? But your grades are so good. We thought you were studying."
A lot of parents would definitely have walked away, but Ebony came from a loyal, devoted family. They were willing to do anything they could to support their daughter.
Soon after she breaks the news, Ebony faces another hurdle when the father of her child breaks up with her.
Ebony was devastated when her boyfriend broke up with her. That had to be shattering for her.
To take her mind off her problems, Ebony throws herself into her schoolwork. During the 3rd month of her pregnancy, she gets the distraction she needs when she reconnects with an old middle school classmate, Isaiah Coppridge.
Isaiah liked to use marijuana. Isaiah also wasn't someone who would ever be classified as a striving, young, high-achieving gentleman. This was somebody who was really happy to just chill.
She learns that Isaiah is out on parole after spending time in prison for child abuse, but his past doesn't bother her. She embraces his company, and the two begin to spend more time together.
In the initial stages, Isaiah was very good to Ebony. He treated her very well and was supportive and caring.
He sweet-talks his way into Ebony's heart and offers to help out after the baby is born, despite not having a job, and the two begin to date. However, with Isaiah's criminal past, she once again keeps her new boyfriend from her parents.
She slipped into that old habit. She had a relationship with a guy that she knew better than to introduce to the family, so she kept him away.
Because she knew that they definitely did not approve.
With their relationship on the down low and Ebony still in school, she and her new beau try to find ways to see each other.
Isaiah was a high school dropout, and in order for Ebony to spend more time with him, she had to begin cutting classes as well.
Ebony's lack of attendance causes her grades to slip, and things come to a head when she gets into a fight with a classmate, and her junior life comes to a screeching halt after she gets kicked out of school for fighting.
Once Ebony was ejected from school, the only way that she'd ever be able to complete her classes and then achieve a high school diploma was for her to take online classes.
After her dismissal, Ebony comes clean to her parents about her new man. They sense their daughter is on a downward spiral and forbid her from seeing her boy toy.
Ebony didn't listen. She continued to call and text and see Isaiah.
Sometimes when people get into a relationship, a lot of that is based on what the parents have to say. Especially if the parents are against the two of them being together. They develop what I call this Romeo and Juliet syndrome, the forbidden love. And it makes it not only bittersweet, but also extremely exciting. And therefore, as much as the parents want to separate them, it drives them closer and closer together.
A few months later, Ebony gives birth to a daughter.
Once Ebony had her baby, her focus shifted from completely being enamored with Isaiah to making her child her priority.
But Isaiah still hung around. Ebony's family was completely against this relationship and didn't like Isaiah being there, but he still managed to find ways to see Ebony and her daughter, and Ebony permitted this.
And all the while, Isaiah tries to get his lady love to leave her parents' home so they can be together. She's reluctant at first, but then gives in, and she and her daughter move in with Isaiah at his mother's house until she can afford her own place.
Although Ebony had now moved into an extremely smaller and more uncomfortable space, this didn't matter to her because now she got to see Isaiah whenever she wanted and had all of the autonomy that she didn't have in her parents' house.
But this newfound freedom comes with a price, as Ebony begins to see a different side to her man.
The fact is, it's an easy way to make money.
There was no way this scene was going to end well.
Teen mom Ebony Fingal gets a taste of freedom after she and her child move in with her boyfriend, Isaiah Coppridge, in his mom's Wichita, Kansas home. While she loves not having her parents hovering over her every move, the cramped quarters bring out a new side of her man.
You don't have to deal with this. It's fine.
I don't have to deal with it. You're here.
The honeymoon period is over. He's starting to show her his anger. He's starting to show her his annoyance. He's not the loving, accepting person that Ebony thought he was.
Sometimes when a couple is so consumed with one another, they're not really thinking things through, and they're just going on emotion and blind love, and may prematurely move the relationship forward and do things such as moving in together instead of taking the time in getting to know one another and making those life-altering, very important, lifelong decisions.
Despite the tension in the house, Ebony finds a reason to stay.
She didn't have any money to pay someone to watch her child. She didn't have any money to put her child into a daycare program. So Isaiah being there was what she needed so that she could get up and fulfill her responsibilities.
But things take a turn for the worse when Ebony is laid off from her job.
I got fired.
Caught between a rock and a hard place, Ebony finds someone to talk her through her financial woes.
Ebony's friend told her about a website where she could solicit sex. Her friend explained to her how she could use the solicitation site to establish her own advertisement and would allow her to build a client base, and she would be able to make money very quickly.
While working as a prostitute isn't exactly on the top of her list, Ebony knows she needs to figure something out to support her child and her child's caregiver, Isaiah.
Oftentimes when people are in a real predicament and desperate to get through that situation, they're not thinking clearly and will make decisions or take actions that are clearly outside the norm.
Although Ebony was quite hesitant to engage in prostitution, she had discussions about it with Isaiah and told herself that if Isaiah was all right with it, then she would be fine with it as well.
So when she brought the idea of escorting through the solicitation pages to him, he was probably really relieved.
With her boyfriend standing by her side, Ebony places an ad on the website and begins to perform sex acts for money, while her daughter stays at her mom's house while she's working.
Isaiah would transport her to the hotels where she would meet her men.
He would stay outside and wait in the car. And in this fashion, they proceeded to set up this business that did actually bring in money.
A couple months in, the duo is bringing in more money than they've ever had. But then, they receive news that could potentially ruin their enterprise. Ebony is pregnant.
When Isaiah learned of the pregnancy, he was thrilled. Unfortunately, a new addition to the family meant that there was a higher necessity for capital.
Recognizing the need to make quick cash, over the next few weeks, Ebony targets students from a nearby university.
She finds some success there. She wound up getting regular clients out of some of these students who enjoyed coming to her for her service.
The promise of a hefty payday will, for the person who is desperate for money, make them do things that perhaps they would have never thought about or done before.
As the weeks fly by, money from the couple's new venture continues to roll in without incident. Then one evening, Ebony calls her mom to ask if she can watch her daughter overnight. Thinking that Ebony still works as a clerk at a 24-hour store, her mom is quick to agree.
Ebony thanked her mom, dropped off the little girl, and returned to the hotel where she and Isaiah looked at the ad online and saw the responses.
It's a slow night, but around 5 a.m., Ebony gets a text from one of her regular customers, international student Ryan Babba.
Ryan asked if she could come to him. She and Isaiah agreed that Ebony could go to the university and meet Ryan in front of his dorm instead of, as usual, bringing him to the hotel.
Isaiah drives Ebony to campus to meet their client. And when they arrive, she gets out of the car to meet Ryan in his sedan, while her man stays behind.
Ebony would walk up to his car and sit and talk with him. They were not able to come to an agreement as to price and what sexual activity would take place.
It took them about 15 minutes of negotiating, but she finally said, "Look, I'm not having this." So she got out of the car.
Ebony returned to her vehicle and advised Isaiah that she was not able to provide any services or collect any money from Ryan. This sent Isaiah into utter outrage.
Isaiah gets out of the car and storms toward Ryan to demand money just for showing up, while Ebony stays in the passenger seat.
Ryan saw him coming, and Ryan gets out of his own car so that he can negotiate or confront Isaiah. The two men meet and they instantly clash. At this point, Isaiah pulls out a gun and aims it directly at Ryan.
And later, in Tacoma Park, Maryland, Larlene Pennell Brown's relationship with her new man. Other than her friend who introduced her to the sex solicitation website, Ebony turned to a family member to help jumpstart her client list.
She had a cousin who was using the internet to advertise for prostitution purposes. And I think she would help that cousin sometimes when she had more work than she could handle.
Shortly before 5:30 a.m., Isaiah Coppridge learns that his pregnant prostitute girlfriend, Ebony Fingal, is getting shortchanged, and he's not having it. So he and her John, Ryan Babba, get into a heated argument.
Isaiah took a handgun and pointed it directly at Ryan's face.
Ryan ran back to his car. Isaiah then fired up until the time Mr. Babba got into his car. And then he goes up to Mr. Babba's car and fires into the car again, opens the door, and then fires again. There were 5 shots total.
Ryan slumps over in the driver's seat as blood pours out of him. Isaiah then reaches into the car and takes Ryan's cell phone. After grabbing the phone from Ryan's car, Isaiah runs back to the vehicle where Ebony is waiting. The two quickly drive toward home, unsure if Ryan is dead or alive. An hour later, Ryan's body is discovered by a fellow student.
He called 911, and WSU and Wichita Police Department officers arrived. found Mr. Babba and called for EMS. They transported him to the hospital. They worked on him for a short time. I think he was actually declared dead at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Meanwhile, police search Ryan's car, hoping to find any clue that will help them in the investigation. Upon entering his dorm room, they find his desktop computer and discover a chat room conversation between he and a woman named Ebony.
We found out that that young lady was a known prostitute in Wichita.
Police also talk to Ebony's other college customers and learn that her boyfriend drives her to different jobs, piquing investigators' interests that the couple may be involved in Ryan's death. As the police begin their search for the duo, news outlets get word about the murder on campus. Hearing the